Hey guys, Bushcraft 412 here. Today I want to talk about choosing a battle handgun for shit hits the fan scenarios. Basically, a combat weapon. Now, in the world of firearms, we all have various opinions, we all believe in different things, and I'm not making this video to push this particular gun and say, hey, this is the best gun for shit hits the fan. It's definitely not. What I'm using this video for is to show you things to look for in a firearm to help you in your decision in purchasing a basically combat pistol. So let's get started. First of all, the biggest thing that I think is important to purchasing a combat handgun is size. I highly recommend a full-sized model. I know the compact models that are out nowadays are really good. They're really high quality, particularly like the Glock compacts and the Springfields, and a lot of them are really great high quality, but you really want the extra weight. You want that weight to help manage recoil and make the gun easier to fire. So I highly recommend going with a full-sized weapon, not a compact version, not a smaller version. Number one, you're going to want that extra capacity that you get with the full size, and number two, that recoil that extra weight is going to absorb is going to be worth it in a extended firefight or combat situation. Of course, the other added benefit to a full-sized weapon is that you are going to have a longer barrel, and that's going to give you a better sight radius and hopefully better accuracy. Of course, that's not the case with every gun. Some guns, just naturally are more accurate than others, but typically the longer the barrel, the better your accuracy. So with that said, another option, of course, is price. If you're on an extreme budget, it's sometimes better to go with a cheaper gun than it is to go with a more expensive gun that you can't afford to shoot or buy accessories for. For example, say you're on a pretty limited budget and you have maybe $300. Now, with that $300, you could buy something like a Ruger P95 or something like that, a polymer frame mid-sized auto, and you're just getting the gun. You're not going to be able to afford to buy any ammunition, no extra magazines, nothing. But at the same time, if you take that $300 and you buy a high point, you could buy that gun, maybe a couple extra magazines, and some ammo to practice with. So sometimes, you do need to sacrifice the quality of the firearm so that you can get what you need. There's no point in buying and spending money on a firearm if you can't afford to shoot it. So price is always a consideration. Plan ahead. My advice is to take the firearm that you wish to purchase, add the cost of 4 magazines, and add the cost of 500 rounds. And that's the money you should budget for investing in a shit hits the fan combat style handgun. So we've gone on to price. Let's go on to accessories. Accessories, some people are really into accessories. I am not. I don't own a single accessory for one of my firearms. But I do recognize that they are very useful and can be very useful in any kind of combat or shit hits the fan scenario. So having a firearm that is capable to accept accessories is a bonus. For example, this one here has a standard Picatinny rail on it. A lot of handguns have a rail, but you need some kind of an adapter to hook them up to lasers or flashlights, etc. So shit hits the fan. If you don't have that adapter, you're kind of screwed. You're not going to find that adapter in a shit hits the fan kind of scenario. So that's something to consider. What accessories can you take? Do you need an adapter? Can you afford the adapter? And look at the gun. Every gun is different, but it's always good to know what accessories are out there before you make that decision. Caliber, of course, is very important, but we're not going to make this video about caliber because, number one, it just always ends up being an argument over which is better, and number two, in the current political climate with all these ammo shortages, what we thought was a good caliber a year ago is impossible to find now. So things have changed in the world of firearms. So the best thing I can recommend is get a caliber that, number one, you can handle. Don't go too big. You know, if you're new to firearms, put your pride aside and get a caliber that you can handle and handle safely. Going with an extremely large caliber when you're not experienced, you will develop a flinch reflex. You will not be accurate with it, and you will not be as safe. Go with something you can handle, you can shoot safely. Number two, something that's available. And I know it's tough in this day and age because most handgun ammunitions are not available. But, you know, if you know a place that always has a certain kind of ammo or whatever, take that into consideration because the political climate we have right now, it's very difficult to get a lot of different calibers. So, something you definitely need to look at. And of course, lastly, you want to look at stopping power. Is the gun going to be enough for your needs? You definitely want to make sure that the gun has ample stopping power. You know, I would not recommend going with a 22 long rifle for your battle pistol. It would probably make a much better secondary weapon, but for your main one, you want something with good knockdown power. Holsters. You definitely want to make sure your gun has high quality holsters available for it. In a combat situation, you do not want to rely on cheap garbage eBay holsters that may do the job for normal, you know, kind of carry conceal, but when it comes to tough combat conditions, you need a really good heavy duty holster. So make sure that gun has a good holster available for it, and make sure that that holster is fitted specifically to that gun, because you don't want to be crawling around in the mud and have this thing jar loose on you. So you want to make sure you've got, number one, a good, you know, a good belt to put this on, or a good Molly vest or whatever, but that the quality holster you do choose is fitted to the gun, and that the gun is not going to come loose even under extreme environments. Let's see. Another consideration, of course, is to look at the weapon itself. Now, I'm a left-handed person, so the design of a weapon for me is often very important, because the more ambidextrous a gun is, the better off I am with it. So I often look for weapons with ambidextrous features. This SIG here has an ambidextrous slide release, which not the biggest deal, but is very helpful when you're lefty, being able to pull that down for quick magazine reloads. Now I can drop the mag. Oh yes, and this magazine release is reversed as well. It's set up for left-handed. I forgot this. This firearm, you can actually reverse the magazine release. So I have this set up for left-handed, so I can do all function left-handed with this gun, or I can convert it over to right-handed. So that's a neat feature to look for, is ambidextrous, especially if the gun is your secondary weapon, because you may want to have that gun set up for use on your weak hand. Another function of the gun you want to look at, of course, is there a manual safety on the firearm? With a combat pistol, I actually recommend not having a safety. In combat positions, unless you've gone through an extreme amount of training, you are likely to forget to turn that safety off, which is exactly why Glocks don't have safeties, because police officers in high stress situations do not want to get killed because they forgot to turn the safety off. This gun does not have a manual safety. I would not want one on my combat pistol, but if you do, and you do choose to have one, that's a-okay, but make sure you train with it, and you are you have that muscle memory that you're going to take that off every time you unholster it. Last kind of feature of a firearm to talk about is the action of the firearm. Take some time. I'm not going to go into all the details here about single action, double action, and double action only. Handguns, look into them and make sure you're getting what fits you. This gun right here is a double action only with an exposed hammer. So basically, and this gun is, we're just going to double check the safe on this, because we should, even though I checked it beforehand. Now, this is a double action only. So basically, when you pull the trigger, there's a hammer in the back that comes out, as you can see, and when you pull that far enough, it, breaks forward. Now, if you have the single or double action, you can often decock the gun so you can have a bullet in the chamber and decock the hammer for the longer trigger pull. Very nice feature if you like having that ability to decock the gun and have that long trigger pull, but then all the subsequent shots are nice and easy. Now this gun here, if you were to fire this, of course, you're going to have a long trigger pull for every round. There is no short, action on this. So look into the actions, make sure you get what you want. A lot of people I see end up getting double action onlys, and then they whine, oh, it's a really long and pain in the ass trigger, and it's like, well, you should have looked at that before you bought it. So look into it. Of course, there's single action, single and double, and there's also striker fired, which is like what the Glock is, which has no hammer, but just has a firing pin under spring tension. Really cool system for combat because you don't have a hammer to get in the way. So, of course, just look at the handgun in general. Do you want one with a polymer frame? Do you want one that's all metal? If a gun's all metal, you might want to look at something like a 1911 or something like that. Polymer frames. Maybe you want to look at like a SIG here, or a Glock, or a Smith & Wesson, or Springfield, something like that. I don't have any issues with polymer. A lot of people do, so it is a decision you have to make before you commit to this gun. And the last thing I want to talk about is hand feel. I'm a big advocate of feeling a gun in your hand and holding it, and really kind of holding it before you buy it. Lots of times I'll go and I'll look at it and I'll hold it for a couple minutes, hold 2 or 3 other guns, and make sure I still like the feel of that gun. When you're holding the firearm, it should, number one, fit in your hand. This one here, as you can see, I can get all 3 fingers on the hand grip. I can reach the trigger just fine. My hand snugs up just like it should with a firearm. If you are a person who has small or huge, gigantor hands, you have to consider that when you buy your weapon. You have to buy a weapon that fits your hand. If you don't, you're never going to be accurate, and you're not going to be great with that weapon. So suck up your pride. If you got little tiny hands, you might have to buy a smaller firearm. If you have huge, gigantic hands, you might have to buy a big firearm, but you might also have to buy a special grip for that firearm so it fits your hand better. Because you will develop problems with accuracy if a gun does not fit your hand well. Especially if like the gun's too small and you have too much trigger, you can kind of pull that gun towards your trigger finger. Exact opposite if it's too far of a reach. You can use the tip of your finger to pull the trigger, which can affect your accuracy in the opposite direction. There's a lot of different little things that can affect your accuracy, so it's really important to make sure the gun fits. That has a good grip on it. This SIG has excellent grip on it. The texturing is fantastic. Even when this gun is wet or oily, it still has a terrific grip. And that to me is a big deal, because when you're using a firearm in wet, nasty combat situations, you don't want to be slipping around. A great example of this is my Ruger P95. I had to get one of those hoe grips for it, because if that gun even got the slightest bit damp, even just from the sweat from my hand, it got really slippery, and it made firing multiple shots really, really difficult. This gun, exact opposite. Very good texturing on the handle. Does very good. All these little things are all things you want to consider. You don't want to get caught off guard buying a handgun and come home and just not like it. So you got to look at everything, every little function and detail of the gun, and make sure this is what you want, that it fits. Some guns have adjustable grips. Some guns have extended magazines, with little finger rests on them. Every gun is different. Look into it, do some research, make the right purchase. Your battle pistol, your combat pistol, combat handgun is probably going to be the most expensive handgun that you own. And rightfully so, because this is a gun you want to trust your life to. Reliability is going to be number one. If you pick a crummy gun with poor reliability, you're going to end up dead. You pick a good quality firearm with good features, it's one less thing to worry about. And, that is very important. Look for a good quality firearm. Read reviews on it. Don't believe everything you read in reviews, because a lot of the internet reviews are written by people who have little to no experience with firearms. So look at them critically and see, is this person just an idiot or is this a legitimate problem? Because let's face it, guys, 99% of problems that people have with firearms are improper cleaning and using shitty ammunition. So it's not always the firearm. So sometimes when you read these reviews, they're just way off base. And that's that. I dumped a whole lot of information on you in a short period of time, but choosing this kind of handgun is a really difficult thing, but it's really important, especially if you are a prepper and you're looking for a good, reliable model. Recommendations, of course, Glock, probably one of the best known combat weapons in the world, used by police and military all over, known for reliability. Price-wise, you're talking like $550. Big downside is they're a polymer frame, and a lot of people don't like the polymer frames. A lot of people don't like that they don't have a manual safety. There's a couple different drawbacks, pros and cons. Of course, you got to mention the 1911, one of the oldest designs out there that's still running strong today. Different manufacturers, different levels of quality. You can get a 1911 for like $400 or like $4,000. It's been literally around for 100 years and great overall firearms. I'm not a big fan of 1911s. Probably will never own one. Sorry, guys. They're great guns. Not in my preference. They don't fit well in my hand. I don't like the angle. I don't like, that safety and the grip, and the big, huge beaver tail I don't like. A lot of things I don't like about them. And of course, there's a lot of, like the Smith & Wesson M&P line. There's some of the new Springfields now are terrific. And you know what, guys? If you are really, really poor, do not feel bad about buying a High Point. They're like $200, but they're built like tanks. They literally just go and go and go forever. They're really cheaply made. QC's really poor on them, but they have a lifetime warranty, no questions asked. And from a lot of the reviews you see on the internet, these things just go forever. I mean, you see people trying to destroy them, and they're really actually difficult to destroy. Now, they are finicky, and the magazines are finicky, and sometimes it takes some messing around. But if you can live with that, they're a good option, because once you get them up and running and well, they seem to run like tanks forever. So, of course, I'm a big fan of the Ruger P95. Very nice, similar to this, except it's a little bit smaller and a 9mm. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed Bushcraft 412.